Okay. That's funny because I
Yes, I hear you, but you don't hear me. You do not hear me. Uh,
Never mind, I got this.
Yeah?
Okay.
Hi, Pam.
Yes. Can you hear me? All righty. Let's call to order Town of Basalt Planning and Zoning Commission meeting Tuesday, November 17th, 2020. Roll call vote, please, Susan.
Okay, and this is the original P&Z group. So Bill Marin,
Yo.
Gino Rossetti,
Here.
Eric Volzek,
Here.
Tracy Bennett is not here yet. Bernie Grauer. Bernie, you're on mute.
Here.
And Rob Levitt.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Awesome. Okay, everybody, first order of business. Oh, no, we have a swearing in of new P&Z members before we go to
Yep,
approval.
and Pam's gonna do that.
Okay, Pam.
Okay. So if Michelle's ready,
I am ready, thank you.
okay. So if you'll raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Michelle Bonfils Tebow,
Do solemnly, sincerely, and truly
do some solemnly, sincerely, and truly
declare and affirm
declare and affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Colorado,
and of the state of Colorado,
and faithfully perform
the
duties of the office of Planning and Zoning Commissioner,
Planning and Zoning Commissioner,
upon which I
Upon
am
which-
about to enter, sorry. Upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you, Michelle. And then Kyle. Raise your right hand, please, Kyle. Repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, Kyle Oberketter,
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly
declare and affirm that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Colorado,
and of the state of Colorado,
and faithfully perform the duties of the office of Planning and Zoning Commissioner,
of the office of Planning and Zoning Commissioner,
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Thank you. And Cindy. Cindy, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Cindy, if you would state after me, I, and state your name,
I, Cindy Hirschfeld,
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly
do solemnly, sincerely, and truly
declare and affirm that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Colorado,
and of the state of Colorado,
and faithfully perform the duties of the office of Alternate Planning and Zoning Commissioner,
of the office of Alternate Planning and Zoning Commissioner,
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yeah.
So at some point, if the three of you would stop by Town Hall after tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, or next week, and sign these in front of me, that would be great.
All righty, are we done?
We're finished, sir.
So
Thank you.
you guys are now official members, and so in the rest of the conduct, yay! And so for the rest of the conduct of the meeting, you get to vote. So the next item is an action item, so you'll get to vote on this. Although, since, and we'll get into this a little bit more detail If we have, when we have 7 members of the P&Z, we have to alternate between our 2 alternates, and said you wouldn't vote if we had all 7 members, but we'll get into that in a little bit more detail as we go into our work session.
Alrighty. Also, our first item is going to be an approval of the minutes, which for you new people, you weren't there, so you can vote on it or not. It's up to you. But we're going to.
They can see me.
Tracy, I cannot see you.
Oh, well, I'm here.
You could turn on your camera if you want.
Well, I'm trying it. I've never joined this way, so it's, I don't know what in the heck's going on.
It should be at the bottom left of your screen. You should have a little video camera with a line through it.
Bottom left of my screen, huh?
Move your mouse around or you won't see it.
Okay.
So, I'm just gonna do roll, oh, there's Tracy.
Do you see me yet?
There you go.
There we go. All right, I'm good.
Okay. Let's do
Technology.
item 3, approve the minutes of October 20th, 2020. Does anybody have any changes, comments, or additions to make? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay,
So
we have
moved.
a second. We
So,
have
so who was the first, Bill?
Dino's first, Eric's second.
Okay, all right. And I'm going to do this by roll call, and I'm just gonna call on this 7 members of the P&Z, and since you weren't here, maybe you just abstain when we're doing that item. So, Bill Marin,
Yes.
Gino Rossetti,
Here.
Eric Volzek,
Yes.
Bernie Grauer. Did you say yes, Bernie?
Said aye or yes.
Okay, Rob Levitt,
Yes.
Michelle Tebow,
Yes?
and Kyle Oberkater.
Yes.
Okay, so the minutes pass.
Okay, Bernie was just adhering to the true Robert's Rules of Order nomenclature, and I appreciate that, Bernie, just as a point of fact. Okay, Susan, work session.
Okay, well, really, we set this up as a work session, and it's really more of a meet and greet. We wanted the new members to meet the P&Z members and meet staff. And then we have it set up that we have some time to talk to our town attorney, just as a kind of a refresher for the old P&Z members, and kind of just kind of grounding us on some of the key legal principles that we need to conduct ourselves with. And then we wanted to have an opportunity of the P&Z members to really pass on items that are important to them and advice that they have for any new members. And then with the available time, we were going to kind of give a little refresher on the Basalt Master Plan as just kind of an introduction to the Basalt Master Plan. So to start the introductions, I think that what would be good is if we start with the P&Z members. The applicants have listened into meetings that you guys have conducted, and they also were interviewed with the town council, so they were really kind of put on the spot in their interviews with the town council. So I thought maybe we'd start with you, the existing P&Z members. So Bill, maybe you could just introduce yourself, give a little bit of background, and talk about how long you've been on the P&Z. Bill's the chair, but
Yes, okay. We'll start. I'm the chair. I have been on the Planning Commission since 1998, which is kind of getting on there now. Though I did take a 2-year stint working for the town as a special projects manager for the Pan and Fork and the Our Town planning projects. And then I came back and mysteriously was voted chairman again because no one else wanted to do it. But I actually enjoy it. But I'm an architect. I've lived in the Valley here for 30 years. Right now, I am working on a number of affordable housing projects in the Valley, but I've also done a lot of owner's rep work and a lot of miscellaneous planning project management as well. That's enough. Gino, do you want to go next?
I'm sorry, did you ask me?
Yes, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Gino Rossetti. I've been on the commission for about 7 years. I've been in the Valley for 28 years. I'm a retired architect. I have a keen interest in what we're doing because I really love this town, and I'm hoping that we can make it better. And I hope to stay on for another 6 months.
Thank you.
6 months, Gino?
I want to get through the COVID.
All right, who's next? Michelle, do you want to give us a little rundown of who you are? I understand you're another owner rep. We've got 2 owners reps in the commission.
I'm currently a city planner for the city of Aspen, but I have historically been an owner's rep. And I guess I am acting as an owner's rep for the city of Aspen right now, helping with the schematic design phase of the pedestrian mall improvement project. But don't get too excited about that. It's a long ways off from construction. But I have done that for owner's rep and planning consultant for quite a while. And I've grown up in the Valley more or less. So I'm excited to help Basalt, manage our growth and deal with tough questions that are going to be coming along.
Thank you. Kyle.
Yes.
Do you want to give us a little bit of background on yourself? And I understand you too have done some owner's rep work as well.
Yes. Currently, I work for a development company, quasi-acting owner's rep for our Carbondale project. We're building 78 units behind True Nature. It's a senior living, independent living, assisted living, and memory care community right now. We have projects all over the state, all kind of continuum care communities. And I've been doing that for almost 3 years now. And before that was just a small business owner doing a few other things in the Valley. Moved here about 6 years ago. Previous life was a engineer for an oil company, last working in Mumbai, India, and got burned out and needed to get back to the mountains. So kind of ended up here randomly. But yeah, that's my background.
All right, thank you. Eric, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I've been in P&Z. I just looked it up and I'm a little shocked. I've been on for 8 years. Been living here for about 16, 17 years. I live over in Southside. I teach over at the high school, coach basketball, and kind of take some pride in the work we've been doing over the last several years and the new master plan we're going to talk about. Look forward to kind of bringing some new blood on board and a new Southsider, which I always appreciate. Cindy, you're the first one since I've been here, so woohoo! So it'd be kind of nice to kind of implement that. And then some of my projects I like doing, I like really pushing the sustainability issue and the environmental issues facing the town. And then also I've got a freshman in college and would love to help push and find ways to make attainable housing for young people to come back to in their 20s, which is a noble goal, but not always achievable. So, balancing all those things is kind of where I'm at.
Thank you, Eric. Rob, give a little background on yourself.
Thanks, Bill. I'm Rob Levitt. I've been on P&Z now going on 3 years. And before that, I spent 4 years on town council. I've been in the Valley for 32 or 3 years and 16 in Basalt. I have 2 girls at the Basalt High School, and I'm a general contractor. And welcome on board, you guys.
Thank you, Rob. Cindy, do you want to give us a little background on yourself?
Sure. I'm Cindy Hirschfeld, and I've lived in the Valley since 1998 and in Basalt. I've been a homeowner since 2003. I am a neighbor of Eric's over in Southside. And professionally, I've been a writer and editor my whole career. Currently the editor-in-chief of Aspen Sojourner magazine, and I also do a lot of freelance writing. And I was interested in trying to join P&Z because I've become more interested in how town government functions over the last couple of years, and realizing that a lot of stuff really gets done at this, local level. And as I see growth happening around us, I'm, as a concerned citizen, want to try to have a hand in shaping it in what would be a way that maintains what we all love about Basalt while allowing for some necessary growth. And I come purely as an interested lay citizen. I do not have a planning or developer or architectural background, but I think that could be a boon to the variety of opinions.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Bernie,
Well, yes, first I want to welcome Cindy, Kyle, Michelle. Glad you're giving up your time to join us, and we welcome new and different outlooks. I've been a resident, been retired many years, resident 23 years. My background was mainly corporate finance, pension investing, working for major insurance companies. I've been active in the Valley, was on the trustee of the Basalt Regional Library, was on P&Z for 8 years. I took 4 years off to be on the council, and then 3 years ago I came back on the P&Z, and I just wanted to kind of highlight for the newcomers that we just finished a major effort last year, and that was the revision of our master plan, which hadn't been done for over 10 years. And both the P&Z and the town council adopted it unanimously. And it was generally held to be one of the most successful planning endeavors or projects that the town has ever gone through, and was completed with tremendous community input. And I am recommending that you become very familiar with the master plan because I certainly embrace it and want to see our growth, follow the principles and outlines that were adopted in that master plan. And I'm quite interested in seeing a lot more attainable / affordable housing joint venture projects in and around the town of Basalt go in. We've had great success in the last 4 years adding to our inventory, so welcome.
Thank you very much. Tracy.
Tracy Bennett. I own Midland Shoe, had it almost 30 years now. I've been a resident of the Valley for 40 years, lived down in Basalt since 1987, sat on town council in 1998 through 2006. I've worked with Bill, Bernie, been in and out of Basalt politics and committees and whatnot for nearly as long as I've lived down here. And I'm one of the reasons that there's some new P&Z members, because sadly I'll be leaving. Oh. We're trying to move down to Iron Bridge. I'm so sorry. I didn't think this would hit me, but I've been involved with Basalt for nearly 37 years. So it's kind of bittersweet that I'm sitting here. I'm gonna miss all this, but it's time for something new. And I'll still have my store, so I'll still be here, but I really commend all you guys for stepping up. Basalt just needs people that are passionate about its town, and I thank you guys for stepping up and putting up with my emotions here. I didn't think it would hit me, but it did. So
Tracy,
anyway,
I appreciate your.
and I worked on the first master plan as well. I've been involved with this master plan for years and years. So anyway, hats off to you guys for volunteering. You won't regret it.
Thank you, Tracy.
Okay, I'm done.
We appreciate all of your service, and you won't be the first Basaltine to wind up in Iron Bridge.
Yeah, I know. Darn golf.
So Bill, I also wanted to, I think we've gone through all the counselors, all the P&Z members, right?
Yes, Susan, why don't you lead us through staff so the new people get a sense of who staff is?
Great, and I'm actually gonna start with Sarah. So Sarah, I'm gonna have you introduce yourself, and if you could also kind of fill this group into the other committees that you particularly work with.
Sure, thank you. Sarah Nadolny, I am a staff planner with the town. I have been here, I guess, a little bit over three and a half years now, I guess. I also am kind of the staff lead on the Basalt Green team, the Basalt Affordable Community Housing. I actually sit on that with James, so the Bach group, as well as the Basalt Early Childhood Coalition, and they also do a lot of work in this region. I don't know what else to add. I am taking notes right now for the meeting, so you'll be seeing a lot of I guess my handiwork too to review.
So Sarah prepared the minutes that you guys approved earlier in the agenda. Watkins?
Yeah, I'm Watkins. I've also been here about 3.5 years. You'll see me occasionally. I'll have a land use item before you guys, and occasionally I might fill in for Sarah, taking minutes. But I've been in the Valley about 3.5 years. I have a master's in urban regional planning from UC Denver, and been working in the planning field about 6 years, and loving Basalt.
James?
And I'm James Lynn. I'm the Assistant Planning Director. I'm not on
Actually,
cameras here.
face.
Okay. I've been with the town about 15 years, and I am staff liaison to BAC, the Basalt Affordable Community Housing Committee, and also work with the Post Committee quite a bit. And you'll see me a lot here at the Planning and Zoning Commission. Welcome.
So Sarah didn't mention that she also works with Sunday Market, and Watkins I don't think mention that he works with Post. And I'm Susan Phelps. I'm the planning director, and I have been involved with Basalt for a long time. I love Basalt because I grew up in a small town. I love small towns. I love Basalt, and we do everything in the planning department, from construction issues to Sunday market to events. And right now, we get buried with a lot of COVID issues. But when we talk about P&Z activities a little later, maybe we'll fill you in. But we do spend a lot of our time on construction. You know, Willits Town Center has quite a bit of construction going on right now. We spend a lot of time working on construction issues and also with these other committees. So you're like our most important, I mean, I can't say your most important committee, but we, you know, one of the most important committees, but we're also working on Albany Park now and the Basalt River Park. So quite a bit of time of our department gets spent on those issues. So that's kind of what I wanted to do in this first part, Bill. And then I wanted to just turn it over, have Jeff Conklin, the town attorney, introduce himself and give a summary of legal issues that you guys should be aware of. So, Jeff?
Thanks, yes.
And you get to introduce yourself, too.
Okay, for those who don't know or remember me, I'm Jeff Conklin. I'm the town attorney. And long ago, I was a P&Z member in Basalt as well. I've been the town attorney for about 2.5 years now. I only occasionally attend P&Z meetings, but do attend as needed. I attend all the town council meetings, and I talk to staff on a daily and sometimes hourly basis, like today. I live in Basalt, have 2 little kids, and yeah, I also love living in Basalt. So Susan asked me to address about 6 issues in about 10 minutes, so I'm going to do my best to get through all of these quickly. I'm gonna go through generally what the role of the P&Z is, and then a few kind of primary legal issues that you'll encounter being P&Z members, in particular the Open Meetings Law, the Open Records Act, the Town's Code of Ethics, and just kind of a few other little items. So, in your role as Planning and Zoning Commission members, you will you take actions generally in 2 forms. In some cases, you'll make recommendations to the town council, and on other issues, you are the final decision-making body. But when you're making those decisions, either in the form of a recommendation or decision, they kind of fall into two worlds. One is a quasi-judicial decision, and the other is a legislative decision. And with respect to quasi-judicial decisions, and when you're wearing that hat, there are more specific rules that apply to how you conduct yourselves and how you make those decisions. And quasi-judicial proceedings are all about due process, and that's really just ensuring that the applicant and other interested parties have notice and a meaningful opportunity to be heard before a neutral and impartial decision maker. That's you as P&Z. And so to uphold that due process, P&Z should only consider evidence and testimony that it receives at a public hearing. And I guess before I go much farther, I'm going to step back to that quasi-judicial legislative, wearing those 2 hats, and kind of identify the types of decisions that you'll encounter depending on which hat you're wearing. So in the quasi-judicial world, that's your standard land use application. That's looking at applying the code to a subject application or making decisions on site-specific issues. In the legislative world, it's your master plan. Your annexation considerations are by statute legislative. And again, different rules apply to legislative or quasi-judicial. And in that quasi-judicial world, as I was saying, it's all about due process. And one way to ensure that is to make sure that you're making decisions based on the information presented in a meeting. And you've probably heard this phrase before, but what goes into that is not having what are called ex parte communications. And that's public dialogue or discussion outside of the public meeting or hearing, if it's a public hearing. In the legislative world, that is not a restriction because you're not wearing kind of that judicial hat. So along with that quasi-judicial posture, if you were to ever receive any written materials outside of the hearing, they should be shared with everyone, or otherwise, if you have an ex parte type discussion or contact, you should let Susan or I know. You should disclose that during the meeting and then describe its content as completely as possible, so the P&Z is acting from the same base of information and knowledge, and everything's on the record when it's making its decision. So the next topic I wanted to get on is the Colorado Open Meetings Law, sometimes called the Sunshine Law. And what the Open Meetings Law says is that all meetings of the town body or its committees are open to the public, and so that includes P&Z meetings. And the question is then, what is a meeting? And it's when 3 or more P&Z members are convened to discuss public business. That's a public meeting. And that can occur in person, on Zoom, obviously, or electronically by email or text. And the requirements of a public meeting include that there be notice of those meetings at least 24 hours ahead of time, and specific agenda information when possible. And so that's one thing to be wary of as a P&Z member, are those doing things that might inadvertently constitute a meeting. And so that really comes up through the use of email and text. And so if you shouldn't engage in an email chain with a few other P&Z members that are sharing your thoughts on whatever application. Like, I don't think the banana stand should be over there. Let's vote this thing down. This is a terrible idea. That type of discussion all needs to take place in a notice meeting and not over email. There are a few things that are exempt from the openness requirement of a meeting, things that the public doesn't get to participate in, and those are executive sessions. For the P&Z, executive sessions are limited to some defined topics, and for the P&Z, the one that would most likely come up is if there was the need to provide legal advice on specific legal questions. In my time as a town attorney, I don't think we've had the need to do that, but it could arise. No formal action can be taken in an executive session, and it's really just to preserve the confidentiality of those discussions. So the next thing I wanted to touch on is the Colorado Open Records Act. As P&Z members and public officials, it's good to be aware that all records of the town are open to inspection, and that includes correspondence that you might send to a fellow commissioner or a Susan or staff member concerning town business. Any writing or document that's for the use in the performance of public functions is a public record, and that includes emails and text messages. Again, just something to be aware of, and that if you are putting something in an email, you need to be aware that it could be subject to disclosure and production if there's a request. There are certain things that are exempt from or don't constitute open records, but there's really not too many that we'd encounter in the P&Z setting. I suppose some work product exceptions, but otherwise the main point is just to be aware that your email correspondence does constitute a public record. The next thing I wanted to touch on was the Code of Ethics. As a P&Z member, you are bound by the town's Code of Ethics. It is based mostly on the state Code of Ethics, and there are really 3 primary points that I wanted to emphasize from the Code of Ethics. Number 1 is conflicts of interest, 2 is gifts, and 3rd relates to confidential information. So I know some of this might be pretty obvious, but if you have a conflict of interest, you should not be participating in the decision, in a decision. And so the most likely scenario where you would have a conflict of interest is if you have, and I'll just read from the Code of Ethics and then I'll explain it a bit more, but you can't take an official act directly and substantially affecting to your economic benefit a business or undertaking in which you have a substantial financial interest or are engaged as counsel, consultant, representative, or agent. This most often comes up if you work for the applicant, a land use applicant, or if your spouse works for a land use, someone that submitted a land use application. And so then the question is, well, what do you do in that scenario? Number one, you disclose the conflict of interest. Second of all, you don't participate in the discussion of whatever might be in front of you. And thirdly, you don't try to influence others with respect to the decision that might be made. Now the easiest way to avoid those situations are if you do have a conflict, and with Zoom, this is easy. You just leave the Zoom meeting. You're not there. You're not in attendance. So that was number one, conflicts of interest. Second, and again, this is going to seem pretty obvious, but there are limitations on gifts that you can receive as a P&Z member. There's a statutory limit of $65, which I think in our code it says $50. But as a general matter, you can't accept any gift that might tend to improperly influence your faithful discharge of duties. And it really doesn't come up much, but just something to be aware of. You can't accept gifts or should not accept gifts as a P&Z member. And then lastly, confidential information. It's possible that as P&Z member, you could encounter some confidential information in the course of performing your duties that may not be otherwise available to the public, and you can't use that to further your own financial interests. And I was trying to think of a good example where this might come up, but I suppose if maybe there's something related to a particular property where you might gain some negotiating leverage based on information you've acquired as P&Z member, that might fall into that category. So something to be aware of there. Really, the last thing I wanted to touch on is just understanding the role of regular versus alternate members of the P&Z. Regular members, as you might expect, are full participating members, and alternates get to participate fully. However, you just don't get the vote. So you can, as an alternate, you get to ask questions, be here in attendance, but unless there is a regular member that is not in attendance or has a conflict, then only in that scenario do you get to vote. And as Susan said earlier, because there are two alternates and there might be one spot, there's some alternating of the alternates to that participation. So that was about everything that I had planned on addressing. Susan, or if you or staff or commission members have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Jeff, I have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
We have now, as I understand it, 7 members of the commissions and 2 alternates. Is our when we have a quorum, is it 4 or is it 5?
It would be a majority of the regular members, so
4.
Okay, thank you. Susan, I have to go. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Gino.
Welcome all the new members.
You know,
Gino.
just a,
Hey, Gino.
I have some things I'd like Jeff to address. Once in a great while, people will get very angry at the Planning Commission and from great time to time sue us. And so I think if you could speak a little bit to how that works and the city defending us.
Yeah, so typically, if the town is going to get sued, the lawsuit would be brought against the final decision-making body. So most often, this would be town council. And those challenges, at least in a land use setting, those challenges tend to take 2 forms. If it's a quasi-judicial matter, it's an action called what's called a Rule 106 action. That's Rule 106 of the Rules of Civil Procedure. And there's a standard as to whether that decision-making body made an appropriate decision. And the review standard is that your decision was not arbitrary and capricious and that you had jurisdiction to make it. So that could come up in the P&Z setting where there is a final decision, and that's one possible way. Another way might be if there's a legislative action, that there could be a potential, I guess this isn't a lawsuit, it would be an action by a citizen for a referendum. Someone could petition a decision that's made by the town body to be put to a public vote rather than the action by the town body being the final decision. I guess it's also possible for the P&Z to get sued for violating one of the things that I just went through. And so long as your conduct is not willful or wanton, then you are covered and protected by the town's insurance that's called CIRSA, and the town would have a duty to defend those actions. So you might remember there's some lawsuits against the town related to open meetings violations and open record violations in recent years. It kind of stemmed from events before my time that were wrapped up more recently. But that's something that P&Z could be named as, members could be named as defendants in, and all the more reason to take heed of the advice I provided.
And there was, the one I'm thinking of is the one where, with Grace Church, which we were only an advisory to Pitkin County, yet we still got sued and sued personally.
I don't think I'm aware of that one, actually.
Yeah, it was really uncomfortable. It was one of the times where we had executive sessions, and I think, you know, obviously we weren't ever thinking we were going to get sued, and it was a fairly uncomfortable time for the P&Z because they were sued individually.
But we were, just to note, even though we were sued individually and named individually, the town's insurance still covered.
Yes, so the town's attorneys defended the P&Z members.
Yeah, the town has a duty to defend, and the town has insurance that would cover that type of situation.
Yeah, it was the Federal Circuit Court in Denver, so it was a big deal.
And I will just add just a couple things that come up. And one of the things that we do to kind of preclude we try to preclude email chatter. So we send all of our, meeting notices by blind copy. So that kind of prevents people from joining in a conversation, and also it cuts down on the number of emails that you get. If you think that you might have a conflict, the best thing to do is to contact me a couple days ahead of time so that I can check in with Jeff, because sometimes there's these nuances. By way of example, Eric works for the school district, and there was an application that they weren't actually the applicant, but the housing units were for the school district, and the question is, does he have a conflict of interest? And sometimes on these, particularly on these nuanced things, it's good to check in early. And I would say that generally you contact staff first. We might put you directly in contact with Jeff, but Jeff works actually for the town council, so it's just another kind of internal procedure that we have. Sometimes on gifts, they catch you unaware. Like say someone said, oh, someone bailed on this golf tournament. I have a ticket. Do you want to join us? And that's over the $50 limit, and it might not automatically catch you because you may not even want to go, so you don't even think of it as being a gift. But that's something like me personally, I remember I was invited to an awards lunch, and I didn't even, it didn't occur to me automatically. It was pointed out to me that I actually had to go and pay for it. I couldn't take it as a gift. I mean, I wasn't looking at it as a gift. I was looking at this firm was up for an award where they were doing business for the town of Basalt. So there's these nuances that you should just be aware of. And we haven't had very many executives, I've been with the town a long time, and there's probably been, a total of 6 executive sessions that we've had with the town attorney, but it does come up, it might come up, if you had a very, cantankerous land use process where we were threatened with litigation, we would probably bring, Jeff in. That's all I have, unless there are other questions. Anything, James, you think I should add?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, thanks. It was good to see most of you again, or see everyone again, but some of you for the first time. And I guess just would share, I got an email while I've been sitting here at 6-something p.m. that said it was National Take a Hike Day today. And I'm glad I got that email at close to 6:30 p.m. when it's dark, but I hope you all got it earlier and were able to get out. So, Susan, unless you want me to stick around.
No, I just want to say one more thing about email. Email is, public records requests are more and more popular. We get quite a number from the town. So when you're sending an email to us, remember it is subject to the Open Records Act. So you just want to look through that lens of, would I really want that message blown up on a courtroom thing, or would it embarrass someone? And I've learned never ever joke in an email. It never comes off well. So those are just advice that I've learned on emails. So that's all I have.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you all soon.
Good job.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, Susan, what do we do now?
Well, I was going to just maybe introduce the master plan without totally getting in the weeds, and thinking that it might be good just to do kind of an introduction, and then maybe in subsequent meetings that we can kind of get more in the details. And then following that, I just wanted, again, an opportunity for the P&Z to kind of pass on items about what lessons they've learned and what things that they would like the P&Z, the new P&Z members to know are important to them. I think some of the P&Z members here brought out some of those items when they were introduced. Just in terms of an introduction to the master plan. The master plan is kind of a very comprehensive document. It's kind of blueprint for how does the town want to grow and develop. And in this master plan, the P&Z members were really clear that they wanted an aspirational master plan. Our master plans, I'd been involved in a couple other ones for the town, and they were more numerical based, or more detail, exactly what was on the map. And the P&Z was really, really clear that they wanted an aspirational master plan. The master plan is used, it's used by the town council and the P&Z in terms of making recommendations on land use proposals. They tell developers what kind of land use projects the town wants to see. So early on, someone knows that these are the kind of things that the town is looking for, and it kind of really gives direction in terms of that piece. This master plan, I'll get into a little bit more, it also went into a couple different areas. The one of the items that it did was that it listed a top 13 projects that the town was looking, the citizens actually were looking for in the community that would make this a better place. And it also, this master plan did a lot more on sustainability and green initiatives. So I'm going to try, I have a PowerPoint that I tried to adjust for this. So I'm going to try to share my screen and kind of run through a couple things, and we'll see if it works. So let's see, James, just a second. Lost my share screen. So kind of key on this master plan was that the good news is we were able to do it pre-COVID, and there was a tremendous amount of citizen input. We had neighborhood meetings, we had open houses, we did a Let's Talk Basalt webpage, we did an open house geared toward the Latino community over there by the Roaring Fork Mobile Home Park. We had neighborhood meetings. There was just a lot of ways that citizens could make input into the master plan. How am I advancing it though, James? Okay. So how are you advancing it?
Grabbing the pick list there.
Where, here?
Yeah.
James has this set up differently than I would have set it up, but this was kind of, we had almost 5,000 data points. This is kind of what I had set up before. What we heard, James, maybe you can run that for me. Can you scroll down and just kind of summarize what we heard, that little chart there? So in the lower left corner there is kind of the highlights of what we heard through the process. Early on, there was a lot of friction on government issues and communication and lack of action. And actually, that really dropped off the minute that we approved the Basalt River Park development. Really most of those kind of negative comments about lack of action really stopped. I think what's interesting from my perspective was that this is the first time that we heard two items really significantly. One was increasing affordable housing, that 12% of the comments had to do with affordability, allowing their kids to live back in the community. And the other thing that I thought was interesting was a lot more comments about density. Density over sprawl, redeveloping Clark's Market with a very intense development. Again, there was a lot of emphasis on the kind of the downtown area. Next, James. Just kind of flip through. This was just ways of communicating on the master plan. And this is just all the data collection. Again, these were just the top 10 most important issues. Interestingly enough, a lot of traction on a circulator shuttle through the town and embracing the rivers through the town. This is kind of the document that you're looking at. The first was the cover. This is how the plan is organized. Part 1 is background and existing conditions. Part 2 is your planning framework, your vision, your plan elements, and your goals and objectives. 3 is just the implementation, how the future land use works, the primary and key parcels, list of projects, green action steps and sustainability, and kind of the neighborhood typologies. And then the appendix. The appendix is huge. You can access the master plan if you don't know how to by going to the Basalt webpage, www.basalt.net. Scroll down to the master plan and you can pick that up along with the appendices. And the appendices have all the complete information and all the citizen information that was put in. The master plan is, one of the things that it did was it really updated the planning framework in terms of the kind of key themes that we were looking at. And so these were kind of modernized from, can you get rid of that, James? I just want to get rid of the, just the key, what? Oh, this one? Just a second, I'm just trying to get rid of my thing so I can see. So the themes were people and community character, affordable and inclusive living, resilient and sustainable environment, workplaces, workers and economy, connected communities, maintainable civic services, regional growth and annexation, authentic places and destinations. One of the key kind of focuses here was that the town council has been adopting a strategic framework, and so we were kind of matching up the areas for the town council's strategic framework with the master plan themes. Again, there you can see the themes there. Big thing was to update the goals and objectives in the plan, and these were really, the P&Z spent a lot of time relating these to the public comments that they heard, dealing with things with access to the rivers and the natural environment, a lot of emphasis on connectivity. There was a lot of public input on how there was a lot of gaps in our trails systems, and people wanted to see that. The future land use map. So Basalt kind of concentrates on the 3-mile planning area around East Basalt and West Basalt. And until about 2005, East Basalt and West Basalt were actually not connected. A lot of fun history where the town of Basalt actually jumped public land to annex the West Basalt area. So we have 2 distinct growth centers separated by a natural environment, but the state law indicates that we kind of plan 3 miles around our town boundaries, which gives us kind of a unique area of our 3-mile planning area. Here you start to see some of the key frameworks of the future land use map. Since the late 90s, mid-90s actually, the town of Basalt incorporated an urban growth boundary. And an urban growth boundary differs from the municipal boundary in that it was really indicating where the town wanted to annex property and where the town wanted to have town-like services. So it's really kind of showing where does the town want to grow in the future. A lot of controversy on kind of the Elgibel area and whether over the last 20 years, whether it should be included in the urban growth boundary or not, since the town of Basalt was not going to annex it. So this is kind of the future land use map for West Basalt, and in this plan, one of the things that we did was that we included kind of the Elgibel area in the Elgibel urban growth boundary because that area looks like town, and it was kind of a conscious decision, and it caused a lot of confusion in the last master plan when we didn't include it. Kind of a key focus of how the master plan works, you see that the dotted line there, that's the urban growth boundary. But a key way that the plan kind of works, show East Basalt, the next one, James, is that if a color is pastel in the plan, then it really isn't envisioned to kind of change over the life of the plan. But if it has the darker color, then it is envisioned to change with land uses. So in areas that have existing land use, you're kind of using the existing development pattern, and you're using the existing zoning for those areas. Kind of a key piece of what we were doing this time around is that we concentrated on about 9 key parcels, and uniquely these key parcels were, let's stop the PowerPoint, James. Let's turn it off. Oh, there. So here's our key parcels. And some of these were primary parcels and some were key parcels, but we really concentrated our efforts on these parcels. These were parcels that during the open houses, the P&Z P&Z presented options for the primary parcels, which were Jadwin Stott, Southside, Meyer's Ranch, and Clark's BCC property. And then there were some also other key parcels like the Roaring Fork Mobile Home Park, the Forest Service property that's in East Basalt up the Frying Pan, and the Elk Run Enclave property. And so a lot of the planning efforts really zeroed in on these areas. So this issue about density versus sprawl really came up on the discussions on the key parcels and primary parcels, and also how they particularly how the transportation network worked for those properties and how close they were to mass transit. So those issues really played out heavily in kind of ultimately what was decided for those parcels. I want to show the Jadwins next. So the Jadwin Stott was one of our primary parcels. This was a parcel that the P&Z really thought was a good location for density. There's 2 actual owners. The western part is owned by Jadwin. It was owned by Jadwin. It was sold during the time that we were doing the master plan, and the eastern portion of that where the community facility and the live work is owned by the Stott. So this was an area that the town P&Z really saw for development. So ultimately, where there was a lot of discussion with the P&Z and the town council about density, ultimately the direction, remember the town council, as Bernie kind of mentioned early on, town council and the P&Z adopt the master plan, and that's pursuant to our home rule charter. And so the town council particularly was concerned with density. And so ultimately what they did for the primary parcels is they had a lower range of density and a higher range of density, and there was key items that you had to do regardless of what density you got. And then to get bonus density, you had to do provide more community amenities to the town. So this is Jadwin Stott. I want to show the next one, James. This is Southside. Southside had additional challenges to it because of the transportation kind of limitations on this area. We had done a traffic study when we did this Stotts Mill development and some other developments about how many trips could be kind of permitted in the South Side before the need for a significant transportation improvement, such as the Basalt, the Midland Avenue underpass, which you kind of see there with the gold arrow. So, you know, the area up there by Few Lane is in a mixed use, live, work, land use, and the area that's closer to the school is in affordable housing and residential with open space. But what was really driving kind of the land use decisions on Southside was just how many trips that you could have. So to get the higher number of trips, you had to have the Basalt, the underpass for the Midland underpass had to go. Next one, James. Actually, hit it again, actually. I want to scroll down so they can get. There are two areas that we ended up with kind of saying that we needed to have further study before the P&Z kind of weighed in on the land uses. And one of these was the Meyer Ranch area, and the other one was an area we called PB&J, and that area is up there in the Holland Hills, includes Lazy Glen. But the Meyer Ranch property ended up being fairly a big discussion item, and the kind of the final discussion changes. Originally, we had put quite a bit of medium and higher density on this site. There was a lot of concern about piecemealing this development and not kind of preserving or protecting the agricultural land area. And ultimately, we decided that we needed a lot more study before we made a land use determination on that area. Likewise, we did a separate planning effort on, we called it the PB&J area. It was the Picken County, it was a gap area in the Picken County caucus plans. And in that area, we indicated that Picken County would take the lead in the next steps. That's the Holland Hills area, and we adopted some guiding principles in terms of how would we look at land use referrals, what kind of recommendations would we give, and a lot of it had to do with the safety of pedestrian movement across the highway and not increasing the trips going on the highway above kind of their current level. Next slide, James. This was referred to earlier on the key parcels, some of the ideas of how are you going to get more density, what were kind of the density incentives. And so we had the high, you know, by way of example, if you had the green net zero incentive, that was an area that we were looking for, and we were more likely to grant you the higher density. This was Jadwin Stott. These were just things that we were looking for. And so by way of example, we were saying to get the higher density, we were looking for the bridge over the river, more open space, and stuff like that. Next one. That was the Southside incentives that we referred to. See, you could go up to 90 more units with the underpass. So even with the underpass, you weren't going to see a lot of more density in Southside. Meyer's property, this was just kind of outlining items that we would look at in this future planning effort, looking for additional trails to the open space and looking at the traffic impacts and potential for the cemetery expansion, things like that. Here, this was new in the master plan, asking folks, these were projects that came up in the citizen participation process, and then we allowed people to do the online voting, but most of it was actually the in-person voting in the November open house that was at the high school. And it was really interesting. So the top projects that were coming out, like number one was to build a significant affordable housing project. And this connector shuttle was a big one. Making capital investments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, $100,000 a year. Investing in a significant solar project. Fire-wise mitigation, another pedestrian bridge. Big, significant Midland Avenue streetscape improvements, the Southside underpass, free RAFTA service within the town, again, affordable housing, develop the Clark's Market parcel, swimming pool upgrades, year-round use, build a large daycare facility on parcel 2E in Willits. And how these projects are used is that we have them as part of our budget process now. We start thinking about what we can put in our 5-year capital improvement plan. So we do have this commitment about making capital investments to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions at $100,000 a year. Sarah's working on that now with the green team, and we're working right now on the Albany pool upgrades. Sarah's working with the Basalt Child Care Coalition on this daycare facility on parcel 2E. You know, we've been lobbying, keeping the Southside underpass and the state transportation plans. So it is a good tool of keeping our eyes kind of on ways of implementing our master plan. Next, James. I think actually I don't have much more that I wanted to do. Go ahead and stop sharing. Oh, just flip through just a second. I think I might have some, I think that's all the slides I really need to share with you. I had some additional slides on other slides that had to do with how many units and everything the master plan pertained. Another item in the master plan are master plan typologies, and they kind of give pictorial examples of the type of development that we want to see in different areas throughout the town, and we'll probably maybe spend a little bit more time on that on future meetings. But maybe P&Z members, you guys could add about important things that you think that we had in the master plan.
Well, I'd like to, you know, because that was a whole bunch of stuff, but, you know, really at the end of the day, so much conversation happened around 2 items, which was the development around Clark's Market and how that was going to appear and how that was going to interact with the town, but also affordable housing of various types and kinds. That affordable housing was one of the major topics of conversation. It has been for me for quite some time. It's, you know, I think a major thrust of everything we do revolves around that to a certain level. You know, I've got 4 kids, and 2 of the adult ones have lived in my house from time to time. One of them just moved out. I know Tracy has the same thing going on right now. You know, it's just it's a big deal when you consider allowing your adult children the opportunity to move back to the town that you care so much about. I think Bernie's nodding, I see that. If anyone else wants to add to any other of just the primary topics of the master plan. For me, you know, this is the 3rd master plan I've done with the town of Basalt, and Tracy too. So I really think that you know, we work really hard to try and make this one more operative than the other ones. You know, the other ones, you know, were more or less functional, but this one I think will really kind of get us where we need to go. Anyone want to add to that?
Eric, Rob,
Sure.
Anybody else want to? Bernie, you guys want to add anything? Rob has something.
Rob has something. I can see that. I can see it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many discussions that we went through to get where we were, but I think you probably need to understand the background to better understand what we ended up with. The first, well, the consultants that did the master plan gave 2 options, sprawl or density. But those aren't the only 2 options out there. I mean, they made a binary equation out of something that has lots of different answers. and they sort of drove people into one of those two camps, which I thought was unfair, right? Those aren't the only two possibilities. There are more. You could have small developments or no development and leave it the way it is. So there are a lot of things that the master plan didn't take into account. The first thing they brought to us had, I don't remember the number, 600 units with no jobs, right? Imagine putting 600 units, 2,000 people in Basalt, and not creating one place for them to work. So, you know, they did redo some developments and came up with some live work stuff. But I think that's really important as we grow to think about where these people are going to have jobs.
I just want to add a point of mine, and was discussed, but there's no real answers, is, you know, we've identified what we want to do in our town, but obviously we live in a valley up and down, and there's development up and down, and the need for communications to understand how this growth might happen and impact us. We have no say, for instance, on the tree farm. We can consult, Eagle County can listen or don't, they chose not to, you know, as one outside issue. So how do we coordinate? And we've done a lot in our group trying to figure out how do we coordinate. And we've had meetings recently with the Mid-Valley Planning Commission, the Pickett County Planning and Zoning Commission, to have greater discussions to understand it's not just our 8 parcels, you know, and as Rob says, there's not just, you know, there's a no option as well. So how do we kind of thread this needle as proposals come to us, because we're not a central planning organization, you know, we're just giving suggestions and thoughts for people to come to us with. Go, Tracy.
No, I'm sorry, I was just muting and unmuting. I had a visitor down here, so.
So Tracy, do you have anything to add about the master plan, or?
No, I think the affordable housing is always, that's always going to be there. How to revitalize and really do a revitalization or whatever of the downtown, Old Town, Main Street. That's a big one. And there's always the ongoing, at least for me, and I don't know if the question will ever be answered because I hear it a million different ways. What is small town character? How do you preserve it? I think that's a question that is always going to be asked, and everybody has an opinion about, and it's all different. So that's always been the perplexing thing for me. Yeah, housing, Main Street, and really what does small town character really mean? And how do you get there?
All right, thank you, Tracy. Bernie, do you have anything you'd like to add? I'm sure you do. You're muted.
You're on mute, Bernie.
All right, now you can hear me and the dog barking maybe, but anyhow, yeah, I don't see us as being quite as guideless or feckless as maybe Eric.
I'm not saying feckless.
Not feckless, but without guiding principles. We are not. We have our master plan that the community embraced after an extensive and intensive activity, and it was adopted unanimously by the P&Z and the council. And that is our guiding principles. And the town said we want density to be concentrated, so we don't have sprawl in these other outside areas or adjoining areas. And we do want a significant amount of affordable, attainable housing, and we want all of our construction to be sustainable and environmentally aware and friendly and energy conscious. And I think, those are very broad, but I think that is the thrust when we evaluate projects that are dumped in our lap, that we do have, you know, a set of guiding principles to go back to and see if in fact particular individual projects actually meet these stated town goals. So, you know, I feel very comfortable with the plan that we did adopt, and I will, you know, I base my decisions looking at, you know, does it meet those general guidelines and where the town wants to go and how it wants to grow. Thank you.
Vernon, I just want to add, I agree with that completely.
So do I.
All right, now, I think that's all of us long-term people. You know, Michelle, Cindy, and Kyle, do you want to add anything to this? I mean, I mean, the master plan is a giant document with appendices. It's over 1,000 pages, so I can't expect you to have digested it already, but there are always the overachievers amongst us.
Well, I'm not going to say that I've read it, but I definitely contributed to some of the things, and I think it's exciting to have an aspirational document. In my professional years, I've worked on a lot of other master plans that are numbers oriented, and they're very confining in ways, and they're just kind of repetitive. And so it's exciting to have some real forward-looking goals and aspirations here, particularly in this crazy time of flux. We don't know what's going to happen, you know, and when it's going to happen with this pandemic and whatnot. So kudos for you, because I know how much time and how consuming this exercises are in updating these master plans. So thank you for that.
Cindy or Kyle, do you have anything to add to that? I don't expect you to, because it's just such a massive document. It's going to take a while to digest.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add at the moment. I think just, you know, thinking about it philosophically, this issue of sprawl versus density and, you know, and getting in adequate amounts of affordable housing is an interesting one. You know, and it makes me think of how many people want new affordable housing built versus how many, you know, are just wishing their real estate prices would come down so that they could afford to buy something. You know, and I think down the line, you know, is the answer to, you know, like say cram as much affordable housing as possible in one building, and then, you know, what kind of lifestyle does that afford people, and what, you know, is that more for a seasonal workforce or more for a long-term thing? Those are all issues that will come into play as different projects are considered.
Thank you, Cindy.
In regards to the Clark's Market, I know it was on the market for sale for a while and maybe not anymore, but was anything ever brought, even preliminary, in front of the town towards a development plan?
Susan, could you answer that? Because there may be some things that we didn't see.
You know, what we were hoping, we also adopted zoning that allowed like a 4-story building on the Clark's Market property. So, you know, we were using it as a tool to kind of entice development opportunities. The P&Z really kind of zeroed in on it. They had 3 different options. And right now the property is under contract. That contract is still valid for a little while, and then we'll see. The Clark's Market property has a lot of challenges because of its ownership configuration, because it is owned, the common areas are owned by a multitude of folks. So those buildings are actually their own ownership parcels, and then where you see the parking is commonly owned. So you know, the parcel that was for sale was the building footprint of where the liquor store is and the old grocery store was. So it just is kind of everybody wants to see development there, but it does have a lot of challenges. So there were some options, some people that came in with some development proposals that came in and talked to the town manager and with planning staff, and what we were seeing wasn't quite the vision. These other earlier applications weren't kind of the vision that I think people were wanting for the clerk's market. Anything else you want to add, James?
But technically, we never received
An actual application, yeah, we never really received a real application.
Okay, I think we're pretty well master planned out for the moment. It takes a while to get your mind and your arms around such a big document. So, take your time with it.
Yeah, and the last item is just wrap-up comments, anything that the P&Z members thought of when we were discussing other things that they wanted to bring out, or any advice that you have as to new P&Z members, things that you wish that you had been aware of, that type of thing.
Well, just so you know that once we're back to a normal in-person schedule, we do get fed. That's our payment. Our payment in kind.
Actually, you have two perks. When you meet, you get fed, and more importantly, you get a free pool pass for your family, for your immediate family. So it doesn't include your cousins, but it does include your immediate family, which has come in handy for folks. And we have, when people have out-of-town guests, we have been able to sometimes work something out, but it depends on the pool manager and all that kind of stuff, so.
And meetings are on the alternate weeks from town council,
Yes.
At 6 on Tuesday nights?
Yes, and sometimes if we start earlier, it's usually to try to get a site visit in. So sometimes we'll meet earlier just to do a site visit. And particularly when it's fall and it starts getting dark, we'll have our site visit at 5 o'clock. But if we have site visits, usually they're like a quarter after 5, and it's the alternate weeks.
And have you still been doing site visits now during COVID?
We have had a couple site visits, and we all wear masks and are socially distanced. And no one's pressured, Bernie made us known early on when COVID hit that he wouldn't be participating in any meetings. And so, anytime you're uncomfortable, you don't have to participate. And in a lot of cases, we just ask the P&Z to go on their own site visit. In fact, the next site visit that we have, James and I were talking, and we were thinking, just because it's so dark and some other reasons, that we would have you independently go, and we might have the applicant stake some things. And the next site visit is really Lot J, which is the lot by Harry Teague's office. So, if you were going to Stubby's, and then you were, Subway, Stubby's, and you headed east, Harry Teague's office is the last building up Valley. There's actually another development lot, and they are in for 12 apartments at where that cul-de-sac is. And so they're coming in with a PUD amendment because PUD requires commercial on the first floor, and they're asking for a slight increase in height. And we were thinking that might be a good one for the P&Z to do a self-guided tour. And that application is probably, if it works out for you guys, the holidays are different this year. So we were thinking that meeting is the December 17th. It's the third, is it the 16th, James?
I'm sorry, December 15th.
December 15th. So we were thinking that before the meeting, you could do a site visit, and then we'll talk about that application at the December meeting.
Alrighty. And anything else you want to go over, Susan? You had a
No,
list
I
of,
included in the packet, we included some of the construction activity, and usually during commissioner and staff comments, we'll comment on some of those items. There wasn't one where we're talking about the ski company, housing, that's 43 units, not, I think we had 35 in the sheet. But you can see, like right now, we just have a lot of construction activity going on, and we're hoping to close shortly on the Basalt River Park. But we've been working hard on that. One thing I didn't mention is that we have budgeted a streetscape plan for Midland Avenue this year. But I really envisioning us kicking that off more the later part of the spring of the year. So that's all I have for updates.
I did want to say, I appreciate that document, because I've been bugging you to do that for a while, and that really helps a lot for the things that we don't see. You know, I don't need, you know, you don't need to make presentations to us about it, but it's nice to have that from time to time.
So there's not a lot of active applications out there right now. You know, we're seeing a tremendous amount of construction activity, but it's on things that are already approved. We have a lot of pre-app kind of discussions, a lot of pre-apps, but we haven't had a actual, there's nothing that's in the process that's, you know, getting ready for P&Z yet. That's all I have.
All righty. I do have a question about Jadwin. Is that still moving?
Did you say, yeah, James, you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, it's still looming. They called and asked for a pre-app, but we haven't connected yet on a pre-app.
Are they complete for a pre-app?
We haven't seen drawings yet, so we'll see drawings when we connect for a pre-app.
I'll be excited to get an update up when you do see something. Bernie?
Yeah, Susan,
You went mute, Bernie.
okay, here I am. Remind me, what did you say is going on or not going on with the Jadwin property?
James is holding pre-application discussions with Jadwin. In fact, I think he had one today.
No, haven't had one yet. They've called to schedule a pre-app, but we haven't connected with them yet.
Thank you.
All righty. I think we're pretty much done, and I got to cook dinner for my kids. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a first and we have a second. First is Bert, second is Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye. Good night, everybody, and thank you very much.
Everybody, welcome aboard.
Yep,
Thank you.
bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.